Alright, so the Yu-Gi-Oh! World Championship 2024 just concluded, and we've got to talk about everything that took place. From Master Duo deck lists getting leaked, to North American players taking 3/4 of top 4, as well as Fiendsmith just generally taking over Worlds. Before we dive into it, make sure to share your thoughts in the comments and like the video if you enjoy it, because it really helps out the channel. So let's hop right into it. The first thing I want to talk about is the scandal. Look. Decade, I genuinely don't even know how to pronounce this, leaked Master Duo deck lists from every single player on his stream. Pretty much that's what I've gathered. And if y'all want to hear my 2 cents on this, that is super cringe. It is super embarrassing. It is so utterly disrespectful, and I'm really trying to pick my words so I'm not too disrespectful, but that is actually wild. I also listened to a little clip that he posted, well, I guess people posted, I found it on Twitter, and it was pretty much his explanation for why he did it, and it was a response to one of the players commenting, I'm pretty sure it was one of the players from Worlds, pretty much saying something along the lines of, this was wrong, like you should not have done that, that is a completely unfair advantage, and it was not up to you to decide that. And his response was along the lines of, well, everybody's gonna have the advantage anyway, or at least the people that have players at home trying to go through replays and let them know, in private messages which kinds of text the opponents are playing. And he pretty much said that, everyone that has other people do that for them is at an advantage anyway, so it's kind of leveling the playing fields, which, to me, that is just bullshit. And it is wild that someone just decides to take that responsibility upon themselves when they have literally zero to do with Yu-Gi-Oh!, Konami, like I'm pretty sure he's banned anyway, like it is so cringe. This has taken too long. This little rant is taking too big of a chunk out of this video, so I would really love to move on and talk about positive things. But in my opinion, it's a horrible move. If Konami wanted to have Master Duo Worlds deck lists be known to players, guess what? They would have posted them. That's all I have to say. I think it's completely irresponsible, and again, I'm really trying to pick my words, so let's move on before I say anything else, but let me know your thoughts. Also, I'm looking at myself in the viewfinder. Please just ignore or I guess accept my apron. I have my apron on. That's what's up with the red string, but I was making some fire fried squid, so yes, I didn't want to change. I didn't feel like changing. So shout out to my apron. It's really beautiful. Let's move on now. Another thing I want to talk about is something much more positive than the decade situation, which is just the overall look of Worlds. We have been talking a lot of crap about that, but in my opinion, they tried their best, I guess, with a closed venue. They did as much as they could. As you can see, the venue was okay. Like the entire feel, of the lights being kind of like toned down and the little spotlights on every single table and stuff, like I think it was cool, much cooler than last year. And something I also want to give them props for is the little celebration events that they had, and then you could actually see like on the screen like broadcast from different OTS shops, which was also kind of cool. And obviously they were playing with the world's ban list, which is also nice. So props to them for everything that they did with the stream and stuff. You could also see, like, in between rounds, you could watch Master Duo stream. The only little issue I have is the fact that everything was taking place at the same time, which is kind of lame. Like, if you want to tune into everything, it's very hard to go back and forth when something is happening at the exact same time. So I didn't really like that. It makes sense logistically, but not really, So with that being said, let us talk about the breakdown of top 8 as well as top 4 and the eventual winner, of course. So I have the top 8 pulled up over here. Let me just grab it. It's a whole lot of Snake Eye, a whole lot of Fiendsmith, Yubel as well. But I guess a couple of the most notable decks would be Ritual Beast, which is obviously the second place Euros competitor, as well as Tempai Dragon and Fire King version of Snake Eye Fiendsmith. So with all of that, like, and obviously a lot of Snake Eye and Yubel, this entire breakdown just makes a lot of sense. But I understand players that were a little frustrated. People were saying it's boring. It's what we have been seeing for many, many months now. But I guess with all of that, I just want to say props to the players that made it to top 8 with their different decks, with the likes of Ritual Beast, Empire Dragon, and all of that. But we do have to say, and we're also going to talk about that, I guess, in regards to top 4 as well, because all of the variants from top 4 were Fiendsmith. It just is something we have to accept. It is the optimal engine to play. And whichever version you go for, like, none of it was hit on the specific ban list for Worlds that significantly to where it would justify you not playing that deck. Like, obviously Snake Eye Ash is a 1, sure. Bonfire is semi-limited, if I'm not mistaken. Wanted, maybe limited as well, but like for the most part, there were no significant hits because our ban list was not in effect yet, meaning you could still end on Appaloosa, and you also could do Rescue Ace variants, which we saw one. I was super excited, but Appaloosa was very vital in that strategy as well, so it makes sense to go for these versions. And you maybe didn't really like it that much, and the feature matches a lot of times were decided by the die roll, but all in all, the players made the optimal choice. There's 1, 2, 3 Snake Eye variants, 2 Yubel variants, and speaking of top 4 and Yubel variants, we saw one of those in top 4 as well as 2 Snake Eye Fiendsmith and 1 Fire King's Fiendsmith. And the latter was actually the only player that was not from North America in top 4. So I guess with that, I want to very quickly talk about that and also bring up Jeff Jones' post on Twitter. Shout out Jeff Jones, of course. I 100% agree with his entire take, and it was something I was thinking of, like, even before he put it to words so well. But players really stepped up their game in COVID season, and just overall, we saw Worlds last year being taken by a North American player. And this year, again, just players are getting really, really good. And people also say that for OCG players, it's kind of tough to play with our time rules because overall they tend to be a little slower, which is just something we see in general. And we saw that on stream as well when a match could be decided a little differently if the player played a little faster and was actually able to go into battle phase with their access code talker. So that was kind of a bummer at that point for the player, obviously. But other than that, you know, I think it was just pure skill. And just overall talking about top 8, let me also bring that up. So it's 3 from the USA, 1 from China, 1 from Spain, 1 from Japan, 1 from Australia, 1 from the Dominican Republic. So it is not just USA, but still all 3 players managed to go to top 4, which is saying something. And with that, let's talk about, of course, the eventual winner. So we have a North American champion back to back. Yubel Fiendsmith was a deck that I particularly enjoyed watching, just people playing with it and making all the meticulous plays and the perfect plays, pretty much. Like, everything made so much sense, and they ended on boards that maybe didn't seem as threatening, very similarly to Unchained actually a couple months back, but the interruptions were there even if you couldn't really see them at first. So yeah, I mean, Yubel, it just makes my heart sing to see Yubel do as well in 2024. It is amazing. Snake Eye Fiendsmith is, like I've said before, a very, very formidable deck, specifically in this ban list situation right now because of the existence of Beatrice and Appaloosa and all of the other things you could do. Like, some of the boards people were putting up were insane. Fire King Fiendsmith, I love that this version got as far as it did. It is just so nice to see because all the hype was around this deck, and then Snake Eye pretty much took over, and it happened in the OCG as well as in the TCG, but the entire Fire King engine is still extremely, extremely decent, and we saw some incredible back and forth between Yubel and the Fire King version. So it was just a joy to watch. And let's of course not forget about all of the other winners. So I complain a little bit that Master Duel was happening at the same time on day 1, but thankfully on day 2 we were able to witness the celebration that they threw for the players with all the drums and everything. Like, it was kind of cool actually. And then Master Duel was happening separately. We also crowned the first ever Duel Links Rush Duel champion. Speed Duel was taking place as well. And then of course we also saw the conclusion of the entire TCG/OCG part of the tournament. But let us focus on Master Duel for a quick second, because I think we have to talk about this historic event, which is the fact that both Team 7 and Snipe Hunters managed to get to the finals 2 years in a row, which is one of the most impressive accomplishments I can think of, at least recently in Worlds, or just overall. Like, there is not enough hype I can give to these guys. It is incredibly impressive. And also special props to Quanto for being able to really pick himself up and carry his team to victory after the incident, you could say incident, with the Goddess and Nibiru happened. In my opinion, he played it perfectly. He knew what he was doing. Nibiru was there, unfortunately, but he was just forced into every single decision, like the Underworld Goddess, utilizing snow and probably at the last bit not having enough snow cards to banish, actually. All I'm trying to say is props to him for carrying his team until the very end, which is great. And at the very end, Jesse's team finally took down Worlds, something that has eluded them last year. Let's talk about some other decks as well. I mentioned Rescue Ace before, which obviously love Rescue Ace, but something that really stuck out to me was Phantasme in that matchup, actually, which we also have to talk about since we're going to mention some notable cards later as well. But Phantasme was so nice. It really came in clutch in multiple situations, actually, but Rescue Ace was there, as was Labyrinth playing Power Sing Stone, which, again, one of the notable cards. You could argue it is just not healthy for the game. Probably wouldn't even have to argue that. Might even be ban worthy. It is it's not a great card to have in the meta, in my opinion. Obviously, we talked about Ritual Beast as well. And as for some of the notable cards besides Phantasme and Power Sing Stone, I also wanted to talk about Bestios. They were quite important, to say the least. There was also one miscommunication situation where the player making the mistake would have probably lost anyway, but still it was unfortunate to see where the stuff that you point does not take precedence over what you say, or I guess in that situation they didn't even say anything, so they were kind of forced to do the action with the card they pointed to, and all I had to do with was the targets for both Magnamuts, which unfortunately miscommunication happened. Both Magnamuts made it to the field. The player lost 2 targets out of their graveyard, which were important parts of the Fiendsmith engine, so it was just kind of a clusterfuck, unfortunately. But I guess with that, I also want to talk about another miscommunication situation with one of the notable cards, which was Impermanence. So apparently, even at Worlds, we still see cards being played in the Imperm column. And again, thankfully, I guess, the player would have lost anyway, but it is not ideal for stuff like that to happen. That's all I'm gonna say. A couple more notable cards to round off the video would be Nibiru, which I think is a card that definitely put in work, to say the least. It was incredible against Ritual Beast in particular, because the player was just familiarized with the deck and really knew where to disrupt it. Mulcharmi was another card that put in work in the matchups where it was used, at least for the most part. It gave a lot of card advantage to the players using it. And for the most part, that's going to be it when it comes to the notable cards. There were, of course, a lot of hand traps to be seen, which we expected evenly as well. But yes, that's going to be it for my report for right now. Hopefully you enjoyed. I really loved watching Worlds. Even though a lot of people found it boring, I actually liked it. And I guess the last thing I want to say is, fingers crossed for Worlds to actually be open to the public next year. We might see that happen. Or maybe I'm just coping. I don't know. Whatever happens, I will catch you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.